What is that supposed to mean, and where is that supposed to take us? So yes, I can debate if it's substance you want me to talk about, but if it's nonsense, I'm sorry.
Let's be objective. What is the aim for that submission? What's the aim for that question?
I think someone has got very background. So the other thing is, Pipita, I ask you another question. I mean, a discussion of a space somewhere that was held by Mureithi, and I think someone else has been told. Do you want us to discuss the substance of that discussion? I mean, I don't know about his existence. That's why I could not deny or agree or talk about it. But the question I'm asking here is, Pipita, do you want that discussion to be a subject of the discussion? Otherwise, you retrieve and you play, then you're able to respond.
I believe we cannot have a conversation about Mureithi if he's not here. So I'm not willing to pursue that. I've actually tweeted out Mureithi to join us on the space. So we're not going to have a conversation until Mureithi shows up. So on that front, let's let that land. We do not have the concerned person in the space.
Thank you. The other thing is, I've put up the figures as far as the graft and the haste has been presided over by Mr. William Ruto. And those are the areas in which I've used to challenge his governance. And I've called it a failure. A failure is a zero if you want me to put a figure on it. Those are the areas I've spoken about. The security. I've talking about the issue of foreign affairs. I'm talking about the issue of the AU chairmanship, Hustler funds, the environmental climate change. I'm talking about the haste on cooking oils, the fertilizers that goes in the area of agriculture. I've spoken about the education. I've spoken about SHA. What else do you want me to talk about? And I've spoken about violation of human rights. I've given the figures of the people who we have lost. I want to be challenged. They told me, no, those are not the numbers. Those are not the people who've killed. I've spoken about the creation of a killer squad that is headed by Eliud Lagat. Eliud Lagat has got egregious questions to answer to us, to be accountable to this question, to be accountable for the post he holds. He's been covered up. You all people know that he went for purportedly what was supposed to be stepping aside, which we debated here, and we did not even understand its meaning. It was a sabbatical leave, right? Now, who does he work for? These are the questions you're talking about. I mean, we can have back and forth, and I said I wouldn't want to talk about that, but you don't draw me into a discussion about Mureithi, and I don't know about it. Let them come, talk for themselves, and I like it, Pipita, when you protect me over those areas. But when I speak like this, and you want to say these are sentiment of a certain group, let me know which group it is you think I'm representing. Then I can speak it up from there. If you're not willing to tell me I represent Kisii, I represent Kikuyu, it is immaterial. You are the persons who are balkanizing people, because my sentiments are larger sentiments of despondent Kenyans who've had high expectations of this government. And to your surprise, people who voted for this government while you never voted for it. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Pipita.
So how do you know I never voted for this government?
Ngoja wewe, acha kwanza tupumue. Oh, kuna dakika moja Glory. What Mofo umeanza unauliza swali hapo unasomea watu. Glory.
Already that is profiling, because I don't know what assumptions is using to decide that I did not vote for this government. Nobody drew you into the Mureithi argument. You are the one who put yourself in there defending something that you don't know. Now you are claiming you are not part of that space. So why were you defending something that you are not part of? And this is not the first time. And Pipita can assure you, it's not the first time I've raised this issue. If Murithi comes himself here, I will still tell him, because I was there and we had that back and forth on that day. Him, Tony Gashoka, those people who are on that space. So it's only because it was brought up, because you asked the question, what happened to the revolution? Are you getting? That was the question. You asked the question, what happened to, then the answer was, these are some of the things that happened. Tribalism, when we had said we are tribalists, came in. This having sacred cows came in. That we can touch other people and not the others. That is how that discussion came in, by the question that you, Peter, the host, asked yourself. So for someone to pretend they don't know how we just came up, no, it was an answer to a question that you asked. That tribalism came in. Example, this is how tribalism showed up its ugly face. That made some of us realize, oh, so we were not tribeless to begin with, we are not together. This idea of having sacred cows, that we can talk about this regime and not the other, we can talk about this person and not the other, came in, and we realized, okay, so if we can defend other people, so what's the point of fighting? Because at the end of the day, these people are the same. Why should I die on the street fighting Ruto when the person I am walking along with is supporting somebody who is the same as Ruto? That is when I started asking myself fundamental questions. Is this really a revolution? Is it really going to achieve that which we want it to achieve? If we have these divisions among ourselves, is this really a revolution? When we judge others by whatever means, canceling people, like what we have done to Faith just the other day, is this really a revolution? That even when there's a chance for us kupenya, tuko na mtu ndani, tupenye, we do something from inside, we throw that chance away because of, I don't know, for whatever reason. So that is how that thing came about. That is how it came about. And so don't tell me, and you already, you are exhibiting, profiling people here, that I did not vote for Ruto. Were you with me? You know, a vote, it's a personal thing. Ni wewe na booth. So if he can know that I did not vote for Ruto, ametumia what measures? Huh? If not for tribe, nisidanganye, Gloria Eo, if not for tribe, what has he used to decide that I did not vote for Ruto? So are we lying when we say there's tribalism? We are not. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. It's 3 minutes to 9 p.m. Tatu kwa tatu.
Yani tatu bora siku zote. Na najipiga kichwa. Na ndo ninaona watu wamefanya mpaka anatoa headphones kwa sababu inakuwa moto sana. Shout out to everybody who's tuned in to Home Run. Of course, we talk each and every weekday. And apparently we are recording these spaces. You can also tune in to the replays. I noticed that we have a replay audience that listen to us after they get off work or in the morning when they are going to work. So thank you so much for also listening to us. That is the future of radio, where you can listen to your radio shows live or recorded and still unedited. Yeah. So I see we have new speakers in the form of Diamond, Ronyo, Red and Republican, and of course, we have other speakers lined up in the form of Western on the rebuttal line. I want to bring in Diamond to speak to us. But before that, let me just ask you to go into that tip line and support Home Run with PP. Where?
Home Run with PP.
Because that is how we make sure that the lights keeps on running on this side of the show. Let's go. Bwana Diamond, habari ya siku ya leo?
Salama. You know, I'm happy that you have a very nice conversation that you should be having. But I think I would easily say I'm disappointed for what has happened in the last probably 30 minutes. A very nice conversation that should be looking at the scorecard has turned out to be something like a personality fight against who is right, who is wrong, who said what, why is he saying something that I don't like, why is she saying something in a way that I don't like. Personally, I think that's not the route we should be taking in these conversations. Whatever I say, you can rebut all the word, the substance of what somebody is talking about. But when you get to discuss other spaces, all of us were not there, so we don't know. We can't really tell if person A is lying or person B is lying. The only thing you can actually have time around is this current space. I just wanted to make that comment. Maybe then, how do we handle a scorecard? I think the best way to handle a scorecard is to actually look at expectation and output. You can also look at a scorecard by comparison, which is I can say I have two students and both of them are doing 3 exams. How is each of the students doing against probably mathematics, science, and maybe say agriculture? How are they scoring? That's how we can easily get a scorecard. It's been 3 years. I would obviously love to try and go through some of the promises that this administration made. And in many times I love a bit of numbers because it's something that you can mark, it's something that you can confirm. So on the chat I posted something that I want to go through it very fast. Some of the items that this administration had promised when they get into power. The only line that I would want to say is I do not know why some of us would actually say because Uhuru or because Kibaki had extrajudicial killings in his administration, we should not ask William Ruto questions because it is part of our nature. I don't know. Why would somebody say because you are defending Uhuru, you should not ask questions about Ruto? I don't know. Should we? Should we say because people died during Moi? I've even had someone talking about Wagala, somebody talking about I don't know what. Does it mean that if Moi killed the people, today we shouldn't be asking questions? Or are we becoming unfair? Are you saying we are becoming very unfair to say why is William Ruto killing people? I don't know. You don't have to answer, Gloria. You can put your hand down. That's just.
You are not my director. You
bit.
are not my director. You are not the one to tell me to put my.
Ladies and gentlemen, join Home Run with PP every weekday from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. only on X Spaces. Home Run with PP, the home of your most valuable social conversation.
Kuna culture mnatoa kwa space zingine mnaniletea hapa. Tafadhali guys, you really need to read the hashtag. It's 4 letters. HRWP. On Home Run with PP, we don't go after personalities. Sasa nimeona hii siasa nimekuwa nikiwaacha mnafanya personality politics, mnakuwa wapuzi. So moving forward, if you don't have a point and your only point is to go after what the other person said, kindly just stay away from the mic. Diamond, make your point.
Okay,
you've already made your point. You've already made your point. Now make your point.
I have made the first point. So I personally think that if there was an extrajudicial killing last year, the current president must take full responsibility. Any death that we've lost due to either police brutality, any abduction that has happened, we cannot excuse it because some president in 1960 killed someone. I think that is very wrong. Fine. So let's go very fast through some of the promises that William Ruto made when he wanted to become president. So the first one that I picked is that he had said he would lower cost of living within 100 days. Well, I'll give that, I think, a 1 out of 10. I don't know, within the first 100 days of his administration, there was basically nothing. There's been some movement in terms of inflation, but if you look at what they did with inflation, this government made inflation a target. And when you make inflation a target, you only target items that attract under inflation. So for example, you know that petrol is probably being tracked when you're looking at inflation. So you do something around petrol for it to come down. I'm just using it as an example. And because you know cement is not part of the inflation tracker in the country, you ignore cement. So cement becomes very expensive, but because no one will track it, you don't care about it. Because steel, for example, steel is not part of the inflation trackers, you ignore it. You go and target the items that are, and it's a very smart way of doing things. You pick the items that are done that have an inflation impact. You reduce prices on those ones, either systematically, mathematically, or any other way, but you manipulate it. So I think we are part of that. But I think that one we didn't achieve. He said, number two, we wanted to fully finance primary health care. I would pick that and put it together with number three, which is funding of TB, HIV, malaria, and the rest, and even number four. All of them are under social health insurance. Is it true that now we have fully financed primary health care? That is not true, because if you go to any dispensary today, I've sent my brother the other day to one of them. First of all, they do not have medicines, many of them. They also do not really have, most of them don't have doctors. It's a nurse here, nurse there. So it's not we've not done anything that I would say it is fully financed. The second thing and third one is that we removed a free education cover for all kids that go to school. We used to call it an edu afya. So it meant every child in the country had a cover for the government. That was removed. Linda Mama was also removed. So every lady or woman that became pregnant was covered by government insurance. That has been removed, and now not all of them are covered. You will see, I think even last week, about 130 children have been held in Nakuru. The boost for HIV, TB, and malaria, hey bro, hapo nayo ni moto. I'll also still give them another one there. I think last year alone we had a crisis on HIV medicines. Let's move very fast to number 5. Improve day secondary schools. They obviously wanted to pay fees completely. There is also the fact that they wanted to improve the education sector across, which included a review on this new education system. What's the name? We wanted to review it when they came into power.
CBC.
CBC. They did not review it. I think it was a political gimmick, and that one didn't happen. So, hapo kwa secondary schools, in fact, the other day there was a proposal that they wanted to actually reduce the amount of money that we are sending to schools for free education. Let's also say schools are running with a lot of debt. In fact, I think by last week they had not received capitation. So schools open and there is no money. For replacement of NHIF, that one I've mentioned. I gave them a 1 over there. There is a lot of crisis around SHA. NHIF, it's NHIF. NHIF has had its own fair share of problems, but SHA is also having bigger problems. As we speak today, I think the debt that NHIF and SHA hold together is in the upwards of 60 billion. NHIF had 33 billion worth of debt that when SHA took over, they refused to pay. And today, SHA had about 44 billion worth of debt to hospitals. So it's a whole matter of crisis. Equal land rights for women, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. I don't know if there's anything that has happened across that space. 50% of women in his cabinet, that's what he wanted to do. That one didn't happen. And to just put that together, there was a proposal that our girls who are in schools would actually receive sanitary pads for free. That also didn't happen. So maybe I would still put that as 0 out of 10, because I don't think anything happened. There was also the promise of 2/3 gender rule in public sector. There was no timeline on this one, but do I think there is work towards it? It was ignored. That was just a campaign gimmick. Now let's go to number 10, which is easy. It's easy to check, as the government budgeted 50 billion every year for MSMEs. That one didn't happen. If anyone has any information to the contrary, I would love to see. But so far, that one has not happened. Number 11. The government promised to build 250,000 affordable housing units every year. And to add it, this administration was supposed to actually, on its budget, put up 250 billion every financial, 50 billion every financial year to affordable housing. So first, they didn't put up the 50 billion. They decided to tax people and added that as a deduction. Have they done 250,000 units per year? They've not. We should be talking about 750,000 so far. They have finished 1,400 as of yesterday, 1,440. So if you do that and divide by 750,000, where we should be eating probably, I don't know if that's even 1%. At least this one is number. So you do 1440 divided by 750,000. That will tell you if they've delivered it or not delivered it. There is this one, which was not, there is focus on agriculture, health, digital economy. I don't know. That one doesn't have numbers, so it's difficult to tell. But as we close, there was also something around state capture. There was a state capture commission that was supposed to be done within 100 days. Maybe they have not finished 100 days because that has also not been done. And lastly, there was something around, forgotten. Something around institutions, using institutions to play politics. When William Ruto became president, one of his biggest issues that he was fighting is that the DCI, the police, and all these other institutions were being used by the previous administration to manage politics. So the DCI would arrest people on Friday, it would, and the ODPP and the rest, they would charge you with 70 cases, even when you have no case. Maybe I assumed that they would do it differently, but at least they promised, but it's not any different. So I still give them another 1. So far I have quite a number of 1 out of 10 and a number of 0 out of 10. So that's how my scorecard looks like. Thank you, Pepe.
This is Home Run with Pipi.
Ronyo.
Yes, PP, thank you for the mic. And thank you, Diamond, and every other person. Diamond has actually spoken very well in terms of most of the things that I was having, but I will just go through what I was thinking in regards to the scorecard after 3 years. Personally, yes, Diamond has been very lenient by giving even 1% in other areas, because if for example, I just have 5 things. My first, I will start with this in terms of security, and you look at before. Because if you're talking about the scorecard, probably you have to compare with something. Now we having the story of us moving our taxpayers' money from Kenya all the way to Haiti, and then we get a record from the Auditor General saying 2.5 billion was paid to support this to support this initiative or whatever it is, and it was to be paid. But again, it went without our knowledge, so we are not even sure whether it came back or it will ever come back. That's one. Again, we were having an issue with the M23 from Congo. Again, we went from there. We went to RSF, and then now we have Jubaland. So we are all over and compromising the security of the country and went ahead to say we are removing the vetting from the northeastern areas, and the Somalis can come in. And then we went ahead to say, okay, let's now remove all the visa restriction from African countries. Anyone can come to Kenya anytime. You can come to Kenya, you can get the passport, you can go to any country. And then now we compromise the credibility of Kenyans who wants to go out in any other place, even to do business with other people, because they will have this question: are you really a Kenyan? Because we are all Africans, we are all black, so you don't know whether I come from Kenya or South Africa or Nigeria, but I just acquired a passport from Kenya for me to access to this country that maybe have restrictions from other countries. And in terms of health, yeah, we have managed to destroy our health completely. Where under NHIF, somebody, a Mamamboga border guy, was able to pay his own cover with 300 every month, and then at least be able to access medical care. There was a little bit of medicine here and there. Now you are allowed to you are asked to register SHA, and then you are told you have to pay 6,000 yearly. So how many of Kenyans right now, and bearing in mind that the statistics that is there, that only 6% of Kenyans earn 100,000 and above. 96 or 94% of Kenya, they earn less than that. So how many of those of citizens, common people who are there in the country, can be able to pay that yearly? So yes, you register, but your health ends when you register. Because registration is free, but in terms of payment, you just register, and then the government will come with these big numbers. We have 20 million people who have registered, but how many are they being covered, and do we have even medicine? And in terms of parastatals, you've seen so many of them going down, and individuals who are really well known taking over. A good example that they wanted to privatize is our airport, which they failed to do that. And if you listen to the report when they were discussing that issue in the Senate, and they were about to give the airport to Andani for 30 years, and then this guy will own that 18% in perpetuity of the airport, and Kenyan citizens, the real citizens, are not even allowed to own the airport. And then outside the airport, this guy was to own 30 acres to develop for free. So that is another thing. When you talk about the parastatals and all the sugars and all the sugar companies that have gone, they have been given to individuals who probably so many other people have lost jobs. When you talk about institutions that Diamond has mentioned, there's the institution that were promised to be independent. Parliament has been captured. They do whatever the executive are saying, and it is not my word, but their word. One of them spoke in the National Assembly and said, "We've passed this bill, finance bill for the president. We passed affordable housing for the president." And mentioning affordable housing, they were to build these houses, but they never mentioned anywhere that they are going to deduct salary of civil servants, who most of them are earning less than 20,000 or less than 30,000. And initially it was okay, you guys are going to contribute, but it will be like a saving that you're going to get. Later they came and contradicted themselves and said, no, this is like a fuel levy that once you contribute, is gone. It is going to help others get jobs. So it is, for me, if I will look at the 3 years, I will probably give them 0 out of nothing, because for me, this far we have not seen any initiative to do anything good for the country. And my parting shot, I will say, is that we have we as a population, we are controlled by emotion. We really do vote based on our emotion, and this tribalism thing, that we don't really think when we are voting for these people. Now we are talking about voting for people, Barasa, who is going for I don't know which county as a governor. And I'm sorry for you, the guys who are supporting Babu, and these are people with questionable characters. And later, we are going to ask for development. Me personally being one of them who supported Kosongo, he's one of somebody who had taken who went and taken a loan with using a possession road. You see, but it is something that we need to reflect as a country and as a people, so that we next time we don't come asking for things that from people who we are very sure they will never give. So thank you so much, PP, for the mic, and I appreciate for the conversation.
All right. Thank you, Ronyo, for that. Red Hand Republican, how are you doing?
Yes, Peter, I'm doing well. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to start with the scorecard and say, first of all, in 2022, when William Ruto took office, even before he took office, as a matter of fact, leading up to the general election, Kenyans were really worried about the state of affairs, especially on debt, right, on international debt. And what I loved during the first day when they were sworn in was when the government said that there was no money in public coffers. For me, I loved that, because I knew with the history of Kenya and state capture and all the loans we were taking, and how much our debt was leveraged against our GDP, all the way to around 60% at the time, I knew for a fact that there is no money for development. Even before they took office, I knew Uhuru Kenyatta had run this country dry. So when they said that, I was really happy. And what I expected next was for William Ruto to be even more honest and say, over these next 2 years, I will not launch any development projects. I will not increase salaries. What we will do is audit audit state corporations and find out where our money has gone, audit the debt and such, balance accounts. But of course, because of politics, the guy could not say that. He decided that he is going to find a way to develop the country and it as well, which led to certain scandals. Scandal number one that I remember was the edible oil scandal, where they brought duty-free cooking oil from abroad, saying that they wanted to stabilize prices. And KEBS, as a matter of fact, when the oil landed, KEBS is very quick to say it was unfit for human consumption. This was around 16 billion Kenya shillings worth of oil. KEBS stated that the oil is unfit for human consumption. 2 weeks later, KEBS revised its report and said, it only lacks vitamin A. But then again, the ship had already sailed. People knew what has happened. The companies that brought in this edible oil were all linked to Ruto allies, from the people at the communication authority to people who are sitting in KRA right now, to other people who were in opposition and are now in government. It was linked to all of them. But you know what? That was scandal number one. Number two, fertilizer subsidy, where they sold people soil. People don't know what it takes a farmer to harvest. Even before you plant, you have to prepare for the rains. First of all, you can't afford irrigation because you can't afford to buy a water pump. You can't afford a tank. So people usually time their planting seasonally. They wait for the rains, whether short or long rains, and they plan. You till your land, you prepare the nurseries and everything. And all you're waiting for the government to do is not even to give you free fertilizer. We just want them to provide fertilizer, because you're not going to be shopping for fertilizer from abroad as a farmer in Kitale or in the middle of some locale in Okambani or wherever. You expect the government to provide this fertilizer. So you buy from the government. But the government decided, you know what, we are going to even do one better. You know, the way Ruto promises, I will do even better. I will give you a subsidy for this fertilizer. So you can imagine being sold soil that now, you know, let me not be angry, but let me just say that from the moment a farmer is tilling his land to the day he harvests, all his money is going into that farm. For you, if you are a teacher, you get money monthly. If you are an engineer, you're paid a salary monthly. Whatever job you do, you're given a salary monthly. For a farmer, he gets revenue in 6 months. Like 6 months of the year, hauna pesa. Pesa yako yote inaenda kwa shamba. And then when you harvest and you sell to the what do you call them? To the middlemen, to the brokers, then you get the money. Then you divide that money, unalipia mtoto fees, unapatia mama wa nyumba pesa ya shopping na vitu kama hizo, and then you whatever, you now plan for the next planting season, unaweka some aside. That is how you live. Ni kama kuinvest in a bond where you're getting money every 6 months. So you can imagine selling people fake fertilizer. That one, by the way, that is the time mimi na Ruto tulioshana mkono. Because that is disastrous to every farmer, especially in a country where our revenue comes from agriculture. It doesn't come from minerals. So you can imagine that. But moving on. And then when the CS was in the Senate for impeachment, guess who paid parliamentarians to not impeach him? Your guess is as good as mine. We go to the e-citizen digital payments. The guy who told us everything will go under one pay bill so that there can be, people can stop stealing in parastatals. What did he do? He found now a place where he can steal all of them together. But we move on. There was a Adani airport scandal. Everybody knew what Adani was. As a matter of fact, Adani airport scandal, even before it was a scandal, even the fact that our airport was being sold, it's not the government who told us. It was a guy working in an office abroad somewhere who noticed that there's a document that's passing through that's talking about JKIA being sold. And he alerted us on social media. We all know him as Nelson Amenya. And we found out about, that's how all Kenyans found out about Adani. And then the people protested and told William Ruto, listen, these are thieves. He didn't listen to us. He even came to X Spaces and told us he listened to us. He didn't listen to us. He withdrew the Adani airport deal after Trump had gotten into office and the ambassador to Kenya resigned from office, the one who was helping him with these shoddy deals. When she left, Ruto knew he's on his own. America is not going to help him with this deal. And that's how he dropped the Adani airport thing. There are so many I can go through. The illicit gold trade, war profiteering from RSF, making Kenya the hub of people charged with war crimes. Yeah, war profiteering, illicit gold trade, withdrawal of corruption cases from even people who are not in his government. Kina John Waluke. Anyway, moving on from that. There is also another thing about another thing on the scorecard. What I believe is now the truly Fuliza economy, where everybody is Fulizaing, from young people to people working to the government itself, that we are borrowing debt to repay debt, just like we do with Fuliza. Ulikuwa na deni, unachukua deni, ulipe ile deni. The money no longer helps you meet your daily needs. It's about pushing the deadline, the maturity of your loan. Kazi ni tu kuomba loan, ndio ulipe loan. This is where Kenya is. Ruto has borrowed a total of 3.1 trillion shillings since he came into office. He's been in office for 3 years. We all know our debt payment.
3.7.
Pardon?
3.7, Baba. 3.7.
3.7 trillion. He's been in office for 3 years. That is 1 point something trillion a year. Our debt repayments are 1 trillion a year. So what is it telling you about the 3 trillion we borrowed? Anaomba tu pesa ya kulipa deni. We are fuliza economy. And that is why Okiya Omtata says that forget all the other issues that Kenya has ever had. The biggest threat to all of us is debt. Debt that tomorrow you are not guaranteed that your taxes are going to help you. That is also, you can see that from the, I'm sorry for taking so long, but you can see that from the securitization of the road levy. A levy that is supposed to be used by successive governments to build infrastructure and to pay salaries. This person has taken that levy and he has made it into a security with the underlying asset being the roadside levy that we are paying, and he is using it to build a stadium. So what is the next government supposed to use? If William Ruto leaves, let's say Raila Odinga comes in 2027, or Okiya Omtata, or Maraga, whoever is your pick for president, whoever wants, even William Ruto himself, if he comes back, what is he supposed to use between 2027 and 2032 if he's already securitizing taxes that are already meant to help us? That is a fuliza economy I'm talking about. And finally, on now Kenyans in general, I've seen Robert Alai's comment or video talking about how MCAs are paid how much, and he thinks that Nairobi MCA is not the same as an MCA from Taita Taveta or Kilifi. I don't remember the name, the county he used. And he said that in Kilimani, he's whatever, an SQ goes for 30,000, a servant's quarter. But he's given a rent allowance by his salary of 18K. So he's saying that 18K can survive in Kilifi, but cannot survive in Kilimani. The same Robert Alai, who, when people said they want 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote, because the people in Nairobi are more than the people in Kilifi, and therefore the resources of Nairobi need to be taken care of. There's a higher maintenance cost for the resources in Nairobi than in Kilifi. This guy came up and said, this is tribalism. There are people who want to eat money from tribalism. But today, he's talking about the cost of living in Nairobi. Why is the cost of living in Nairobi high? Ask him that question. And finally, I want to talk to everybody in general in this space, because I've heard there was an altercation between some people, and we are not going into personalities, but I want to speak about Kivutha Kibwana. Kivutha Kibwana every Saturday, and we all love Kivutha Kibwana. We know he's a very democratic individual. But every Saturday, he attends a space by Redemptor Mwikali, who is also famous. And it's a totally Kamba space. Arap Tilingi, who we all know from Twitter, also holds a Kalenjin space. There's a Kikuyu space, also known as Ando Amombi, that is held regularly. There's a Luo Nation space that is held regularly by a page called Luo Nation, and I've attended all these spaces I've mentioned. When I can't understand what is being said, I just leave. But I always read the comments to find out somebody who is translating or somebody who is angered by what has been said. And I can attest to you that there are speakers here. I won't mention the names, but there are speakers here who have attended some of these spaces based on where they come from. And I'm not against it because, let's be honest, if I live in Ruiru, the person living above me, the person living to my left, and the person living to my right is probably a Kikuyu. If I throw a stone, I'll probably hit a Kikuyu. If I live in Kisumu, the same with Luos. And if I live in Mandera, the same with Somalis. Sorry if I'm annoying anyone. But people require to be left to talk about their communities and their issues because they live among each other. It is not about one person versus the other person. So allow people to meet and talk. As a matter of fact, for me who have been abroad severally, there's nothing as good as meeting a Kenyan from abroad. Even if he doesn't speak Kiswahili, I just find out he's a Kenyan. I'm very happy. If I find out he speaks Kiswahili, even better. I'm very happy. The best part is if I find out he speaks my vernacular language. We're all abroad, but if I find that out, I'm very happy and we speak it. It is not tribalism. It is how when you learn to ride a bike, you cannot forget. And once you get a bike, you're going to ride it, even if you're 16. So please, let us be honest with each other. Let's stop throwing fingers at each other, stop stabbing each other. If you go to a space that is written under a Mondi and you can't understand the language, it is your fault for going there. Umeenda kufanya nini? And if you go to a Luo nation space and they're speaking the Luo and you can't understand the language, it is your fault for going there. What have you gone there to do? Unless you've gone there to mark the people who are there, and then you can find them another place and bark at them. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you, Bwana Red Hand Republican, for that submission. Naona mikono iko juu, utafikiria kuna okay. Imenipata offside. Naona Lusiski Western Siliwe kwa hapa hivyo mina mikono juu. So let's hear from Lusiski. How are you doing, Lusiski? Ulisema kwanza show yetu imekufa kwa sababu tunaacha Western anaongea. Why would you say that and come to the space still? You said home run image. I'm on afraid nilisahau.
No problem, PP. I hope you're getting me right now. PP.
Yes, now I get you. Yes, I get you.
PP, can you get me?
Yes, I can get you, Lusiski.
Yeah, so I don't know if I need to leave a disclaimer for that statement. But the thing is, I'm quite observant. Professionally, I'm a statistician. So before I delve into massaging data, I need to be very observant. One thing I've noticed, people who, for example, don't support William Ruto, they are outspoken and they are very vocal and they're straightforward. Whereas people who support William Ruto, they cut 1,000 lines and create a lot of crossroads or alibis along the way. And then you can see them from far. You can see from where they came from where they're going. They think they are subtle, they think they are wise, but you can see their origin and their end, right? And in a modern world where, there's freedom of information and information is becoming ubiquitous, we are not living like our grandparents who never had things like X spaces or whatever the KBC told them was the only reality. We are living in an era of critical thinking where everybody has a story to relate to. So it's really absurd for some people to think that they have silos of knowledge or preferential intelligence so hidden from everyone else. So we know where everyone is coming from. You yourself, you can see, you can literally, you could score 100% if you're told to mark what's the political inclination of everyone here. You'd literally score 100%. And then in the environment where we know each other that much, it's only fair that we be very honest, So my trouble usually with Western is, uses a lot of fallacies. So many fallacies. I don't want to list them now.
Peter, please don't allow somebody to discuss me. If they have no
let us not go
just
after
tell them
personal.
to go.
Oh my God!
Yeah, just
let
tell
us
this
not go.
individual.
Lusiski, I think you've got it up. Tumesema kwamba mambo ya personality tuache. Go for your point.
No problem. I digress from that. Okay, let me go straight to my point. My observation on
Amanda, Lucy, can mute your mic and talk to us.
Yes, I'm getting you, PP. So let me go straight to my observation on what's Ruto's scorecard in these last 3 years. Ruto is the head of our government. So these last 3 years, what I can say is, I want to begin with an analogy. PP, let's imagine in our rural environment, or whatever small setting that we have jurisdiction over. Suppose, for example, you and me, PP, we have a jurisdiction over a certain location. And then in that location, there's a lot of heinous crimes that's committed by youths in those locations. People butcher each other. There's a lot of deaths. And then you can imagine in a working society where entire justice systems are working, you, PP, maybe you are the head of council of elders in that area, and maybe I'm the police head, and the county commissioner comes together, and then we claim that we want to scuttle the judicial process. We want to scuttle all the tenets and the principle of justice system. And we say we are coming up with a mechanism to resolve these matters by compensating certain people. PP, this is the quintessential example of Ruto's failure. In that, whatever we are doing, we are not setting up precedents to prevent future governments from committing such crimes. What we are doing, we are giving future governments a carte blanche ticket to do such crimes, and then, form such unconstitutional commissions, to wash away the crime. So you, Council of Elder, and me, the police head, and then the county commissioner comes together and say, because these people are so disparate and they're so poor, and then we know the people who have, we accept that there's a lot of murder in this location. We want to resolve these things this way. Let's enumerate, or let's do a survey or investigation on people who are murdered or people who suffered, and then let's pay them, and then let's end this end here. Now, this has no precedence anywhere. This is a very ancient form of justice that can not hold in a constitutionally holding republic, right? So this is the biggest examples of Ruto's failure, in that as a narcissist, he's so keen on running away from responsibility and will take the easiest route possible that's available. Will always get the easiest highway that's open available. And ODM through Raila Odinga gave him that leeway. And then, because Raila is so tight, because he is facing, himself in the mirror, and he can't even believe in his own image. So at least he has to have something, at least one of the 10 points in the NADCO report, at least one of the 10 points, leave alone even the broad-based. Go back to NADCO, at least one, because we for sure know that out of 10 points in the NADCO reports, in the broad-based report, none will be implemented. The only point that is implicated in both reports, in the NADCO and the broad-based, is compensation of the, victims of police brutality. So I think this goes far back to 2007, and he feels haunted. And I think he has, put Ruto on his, he's pushed all the pedals on Ruto and pinned him down that, if I have a lifeline to help you in 2027, at least one of these many things that I've ever proposed in many years has to be implemented. And how do they implement it? You see, Ruto is a belligerent in this matter. PP, you can't claim that somebody who was adversely mentioned and accused in a crime against humanity has to be the person who is in charge of, creating a commission to investigate all those, crimes and to prefer, compensation. While we are really living in a republic that has all the mechanisms, as one of the most, progressive Bill of Rights to handle such excesses, you see? So, in other words, we are damning our entire judiciary. We are damning our entire police system. We are damning our entire rule of law system. We are saying that when Kenya is approached with such situations where hundreds of youths can be killed and kidnapped and murdered, we have no recourse. It's just politicians have to sit somewhere and decide, to do things their own way. I think that's a very bad precedence, and that only encourages future generations that if you become a president tomorrow and people are questioning your policies, your work is simple: kill as many as you can and form this unconstitutional commission. I believe 100%. There's no court ever here in Kenya today, whichever region you choose, that would allow this commission to, work or go through, because this commission is telling the court that you don't know your work. He's telling the police that you don't know your work. He's telling the Interpol that you don't know your work. He's telling journalists that you don't know your work. He's telling the entire citizen that you don't know your work. The thing is, we had all this, but we still created the police system. We created the judicial system. We created the citizen surveillance system, of which journalism is an extension, of which your space PP is an extension. But they're saying you're stupid and you know nothing, and our constitution knows nothing about this, and the entire judiciary knows nothing about this, and COK 2010 is rubbish. Raila and Ruto can meet and decide, points a commission, and decides to end this matter in form of monetary compensation. That we sit down and decide, oh, you were hurt, let us pay you this. This is crime against humanity. This is crime that needs to be investigated, and people need to be pinned down. In any case, if there is preferential charges, if there is preferential, investigation or any legal recourse, then it should emanate from our judicial system or our justice system. The police needs to write report. The judiciary needs to write report that, hey, all of the Kriegler reports, all of the, the Ndungula Commission, the TJRC reports that was encompassing and all-inclusive, involving the judiciary, the police, and all stakeholders, you see? But now, we are trying to pretend that after somebody commits crimes against humanity, then he can sit with his favorite political opponent and decide that Lusisky was shot in the leg. Let's pay Lusisky 70,000, Kenyans are simplistic because they look everything politically. They think that they want a quick solution. They want to solve this very quickly and move to 2027 and do politics. They want to overcome political problem. But this is not political problem. This is humanitarian problem. This is an existential problem. This can make or break this country, you see? So this is not a problem that can be solved by presidential decrees. For years, we tried to give as many as presidential decrees he gave. And then at least when the TJRC report was being released, when the post-election reports by the Kriegler Commission was releasing his report, at least he was alive and he was convinced that presidential decrees can be rubbish. Presidential decrees can be rubbish. People are ruled by people's law, not a president's thinking or some political matador at the top there who thinks that, he's the epitome of everything that's fair and just, I think this is the biggest failure of Ruto's government. And trust me, people, you'd be opening this space and you'll be coming back. Huh? And I want you to call me, I want everyone to call me out on this. There is no court in Kenya who is going to validate this nonsense. This is complete nonsense. You're going to, before a judge, you're telling him, you're rubbish. Our COK 2010 is rubbish. The police station is rubbish. Raila sat with Ruto. They nominated Faith Odhiambo to decide whoever was shot in the leg, whoever lost one eye should be paid this. Like, it's ridiculous. A judge who went to school would be listening to you all day and he wouldn't even argue. But they'd wait the time to deliver the verdict because you're as stupid as it comes, you see? So I hope the people who are advising Ruto know this, but Ruto is keen to please Raila. And Raila is keen to have at least one thing of the many things he has ever proposed since 2007 to be implemented, because none has been implemented. Raila has been crying, for example, that we need electoral reforms, and he has had specific issues that needs to be addressed in the electoral reforms. And as soon as he gets handshake, he throws them away. So now he's in a catch-22. Age has caught up with him. And there's no way you can run away from the fact that your number one proposal since 2007 is that compensation of post-election violence victim or police brutality. Now you're going down to history that thing you never even attempted at it. So you're trying to do it at the tail end of your career. And then now he's telling Ruto, my support is pegged on that. Do that or I don't support you. And then Ruto, no, this is utterly unconstitutional. Raila has nowhere withal, nor power to even do anything like that. And Ruto has no power or wherewithal to do anything like that. Faith Odiabo has zero power to decide that my cousin's leg who was shot and his leg was cut is worth 50,000. Faith Odiabo has zero power on that. And we are just having like a fortnight before the High Court rules on that. You see? So we support we support complete bullshit because we want to escape political responsibility. Kenyans have mastered the trick of escaping responsibility. So that's number one. Ruto is in the habit of escaping responsibility. Number 2
minutes.
I want to summarize by saying this. PP, when Ruto came into power, you want to know the person's character when he has most power, before Gen Z pressed him to the wall. Ruto came into power with the most anti-Luo government I've ever seen in my life. Not even Uhuru in his most hateful situations, not even Kenyatta or Kibaki or any past president treated or alienated Luos like Ruto did when he came to power. It's just Gen Zs have become a watershed for Luo politicians, to cower under, so that they can get a slot here on too. Moi in his most hateful moments still reserve at least 5 cabinet slots for Luos. Uhuru reserved at least 2, for Luos. Ruto reserved 1, in his most hateful moments, for example. And I'm speaking because for I don't want anyone to doubt. I'm a Luo, and I know my community. The role they played, remove them out, and probably you might not have anything to brag about like Kenya, because even in the darkest of moments like these, we still find some of our folks who can still go against our folks and say, hey, we've been in this situation for long, but this is not fair. So what I'm saying is, when he came to power, he started by absolving and acquitting every person. PP, just allow me to finish this point, please. Ruto absolved and acquitted every person who previously had a corruption case. Remember people like Aisha Jumwa? He made sure their cases were dropped. He meddled into the work of ODPP and EACC and everyone, and these people were all of a sudden clean. So if those first 2 points don't give you the scorecard of this government, then you don't know what you're looking for. And lastly, PP, our debt is a bottomless pit. And this government came into power on the premise of reducing, our borrowing, reducing our appetite for infrastructural advancement, because the idea was we can't advance infrastructurally at the cost of, sinking as a nation. But what do they do? This government so far has borrowed around 3.2 trillion on top of what we had. So, despite what they told us, our debt to GDP ratio is above 70%. You see? So ideally, we can estimate that they're probably going by the rate they're borrowing, they could leave us at around 76, 75% of our GDP. You see? So all these borrowings, they don't translate to household, relief. They don't translate to household, prosperity. You see? So if this debt issue is not resolving is not giving you an indicator, and if this meddling into the independent constitution is not giving you an indicator, and if this extrajudicial killing, which now is supposed to be dressed by Faith, I pity Faith. Faith is a lawyer. Some of these lawyers, you guys think they're intelligent, but now see the High Court coming. This is, people record me and put me on, like you're going before a judge. You know what you'd be telling a judge? Police has failed, you have failed, everything has failed. We are doing things our own way. I mean, that's the only reason you can tell a judge, you can only convince a judge that everything has failed. And, there are hundreds of thousands of people maimed. We want to compensate them by our own method, by our own investigation. Allow us. PP, if you are a judge, you'd send that particular president or person to hell straight away. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, join Home Run with PP every weekday from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. only on X Spaces. Home Run with PP, the home of your most valuable social conversations.
When I started this conversation, I was seated here with Kirer Pat, and for more than 1.5 hours, I was just speaking to Kirer here, and we were talking about the manifesto that William Ruto promised, and so far, so good, how much he delivered. Can you believe nobody came to the mic up until Western Shilao came and started talking about diplomatic stuff, nini. That's when you guys came to the mic. Saa zingine mnagombananga na Western, unajua, kwa sababu ya divergent thoughts. But let us be honest, when presented with direct objective facts, inakuwa ngumu. But nasikia vizuri juu namuona ndugu ya Anthony yako hapa hivi. I have seen Dr. Mofo and Western and Gloria wame-mention Anthony. So before Anthony hata nikupatie chance uongee na sisi, let me just give you a rundown. You have been extensively mentioned in this space as part of people that have come extensively. Mnasikia hiyo Rusungu, guys. He has been extensively mentioned in this space as being with his associate, not before this court. Also another Tony. Hii conversation ya Matony. I am Tony, he is Tony, there is another Tony Gashoka. So mmesemekanwa sawa ya kwamba nyinyi ndio mmeshinda mkisema numbers. Kwa hivyo nitakuleta kwenye show utuongeleshe in the next hour, utuongeleshe. So I want to bring a guy called Siliwi to talk to us. Then we go to listen to these two guys, that is Gloria and Western, who have also mentioned here. They will want you to mention, to respond, because Home Run is not a space of gossip. Now while we are at it, rate KK at 3, kuna poll nimeweka pale viju. Kuna give them time, iko at 13%, absolute shambolic at 40%, language jicho tu is a control answer, iko 47%. So tell me what you feel about the current regime hitting at 3. I'll be here waiting for you. Siliwi, how are you doing? Siliwi?
Unasikika?
Unasikika.
Unanisikia?
Nakupata. Talk to me.
Le imekuwa moto. Out of the topic imekuwa moto, lakini ni saa tuko hii Kenya lazima tuongee kila kitu. So I think hii serikali tuseme tu inapumua. the best yani ukijaribu kuirate ama kufanya ni aje, the scorecard utasema tu inapumua tu. Hata ifanyi anything, haisonge, inui mguu, haitembei, inapumua tu. Yani ni mtu mwenye akaonikako inakoma tu, yetu ni kupumua tu. Wachekio design. Hakuna kitu inafanya, kama ni kila kitu tu ina crumble tu. So serikali inapumua tu. Kazi yake kubwa tu ni kupumua, iko tu. Iko ICU, inapumua tu. Hiyo ndio the best scenario yenye naweza piga historia ya Ruto. Yani ni msee mmoja mwenye yani ni kama alikuwa ameingia hapo na formula moja ya kuiba ika backfire. Sasa hii saa juu ni aje, saa tu wako tu saa ameinvite wezo wengine hapo hivyo tena wanaiba saa te ajui ni aje, saa tu wamekaa tu wanajiangalilia, saa tu tuko tu utombodu tu kupumua tu. So umse tuko in a very bad state kama nchi, tuko tu hapo mse tu anango yeye tuseme yeye anajaribu ku create the chaos, aone kama atapata chance ya kusimama, apate foothold, kwa sababu tuseme kitu kama hii compensation yenye wase wanaleta issue, tuseme it is the only positive thing yenye tuseme kama inge happen ingekuwa the only on a very mi Ruto si ati niaje simpendi na whatever, na mi sikulagi hiyo pesa ya hongo ama whatever, lakini tukiweza angalia kwa vitu zote zenye Ruto amefanya, the only thing yenye anaweza fanya tuseme, hata kama wase watasema it is illegal, it is unconstitutional, the only kitu yenye inaweza chukuliwa kama positive to some extent, hata kama ni illegal, ni msee akifanya hiyo whatever, akiweza compensate watu, tunasema of all the illegalities zenye alifanya, pia kucompensate watu, tuseme hata kama ni kutoka 2013 hadi last year ama this year, hiyo ndio tunaweza sema umse hiyo tu ndo kwa illegality zote zenye alicommit, hii ni illegality yenye alicommit yenye ilikuwa at least positive, hata kama the credit might go to Raila kwa sababu hiyo ndio ilikuwa part of the handshake. Hiyo credit inaweza enda kwa Raila, so Raila anaweza kama utasema nilipromise nitaenda compensation ifanyike kutoka 2013 hadi saa hii mumepata compensation, of which tuseme whatever way itaenda, mi personally na support, kwa sababu watu wanaenda State House wanapoa handout, wanakuja wanatoka kwa basi wakisemaga one time motherfucker, umechukua pesa ya muwa.
Si mtanionyesha mambo hii Nairobi ya Kenya hii. Haya. So I'm gonna give five minutes. 5 minutes Gloria and Western. I'm not going to 11 p.m. leo. Tangu tuanze kipindi hata sumuni haijaingia kwenye tip ya jamani. Wacheni niende nitafute cabbage kabla mama mboga afunge. Gloria, 5 minutes. Western 5 minutes. Then we give Anthony a right of reply.
Okay. To avoid back and forth, I'm going to address this first to you, Pipita. That as a host, you're supposed to be the moderator. And therefore, if someone is distorting what somebody is saying, instead of waiting me nikuje tukue back and forth, you correct immediately. Because I don't understand why you say something hata 3 minutes hazijapita. You know, ingekuwa 2 days imepita, 3 days imepita, then we understand, you can forget. But what someone says 3 minutes ago, unless you are deliberately distorting what somebody has said, because nobody said here that at Uhuru, because Uhuru killed less people or killed more people. No, I remember very well I said the number of people killed does not matter. Once you kill one person extrajudicially, you've already crossed that line. You are a human rights violator of killing one, same as the person who killed 50 is also a human rights violator. That is what I said. But people distort things deliberately. Nawe Pipita, wakatazi. The other thing, these things that are here, raising hands, what, ziko hapo ndo zitumike. So if I raise my hand, as long as I've not opened my mic, it does not stop you from making your submission. You continue with your submission. But what wanadhani, if they rule people in their houses, they'll come on spaces. Nobody's is nobody's child here. To tell someone that put your hand down, Gloria, I mean, really, that is nonsense. That should not be allowed. So Pipita, I'm addressing this to you, ndo tusipigane na watu wengine. You as a host, hiyo ndo kazi yako. Moderate watu, kuambia watu ukweli. You don't distort what people have said. And you don't come to direct people here on space. Okay, moving on to the issue of Anthony. A question was put here by Pipita to Western. He made a comment on how the movement, the revolution, has since lost its oomph, that people are no longer as energized as they were. What happened? And to that, he responded, among other things, that tribalism reared its ugly face within the revolution. And he gave an example of a space where you and Tony Gashoka were mentioning numbers And it's not only that space, that without Kikuyus, without the numbers, a presidency cannot be achieved. So those numbers have to be considered. There was also a space by Hilary Gondi, where you also were there. And I remember pushing back in that space, and the space that happened very much late in the night with Tony Gashoka. I even remembered him telling me, because there was something very significant that was to happen in my life that time. That's why I even remember. It was in October of last year. October of last year, I remember him telling me, come back on Wednesday. We are going to have that discussion. But I knew I couldn't come back because I was to have surgery of that Tuesday, 8th of October. So he said that is one of the reasons that tribalism came in, and therefore people, because I was also there, that's why I supported. I said, yes, tribalism came in. I felt that I wasn't going to be part of a revolution that thinks other people are better than others. We were here because the thing was tribeless. But when people start talking numbers, then it put me off. So here is your chance to tell us whether that space happened or not. And to the person who said that all people have their own spaces, this tribe, no, this was a general space. It wasn't for a particular tribe. And people were speaking in English and Swahili. That's why I was able to engage. So I heard what was going on. It wasn't that it was something like a particular group only. No, it was a general space. Thank you very much.
Weston, 5 minutes.
Pepita, I like watching National Geographic because you learn a lot of lessons. When you want to unwind, just watch wildlife, sobering life lessons. A pack of dogs hunt in a group because they're small in size, so they can't confront big game. They must come together. Elegant predators, leopards, lions, cheetahs, tigers, panthers, jaguars, they hunt alone because they can take on any prey. They've got the agility, the strategy, and the power. So when you say before I came speaking, people were not paying attention to what was going on. If you're not saying things that matter, people will ignore you, Pepita. If you want to know that you don't matter, people ignore you in life. And that's the worst that could ever happen to you in life. It's not that somebody has killed you or somebody has lied to you. What the worst that could ever happen to you in life is to be ignored.
Yaani unatukana kwa show yangu Western kabisa. Unasema kwamba I don't matter.
Peter, I'm using you as just, because you're the moderator. That is the worst. So that people can gang together and talk about you and discuss you. Peter, it means what you're saying is making them uncomfortable. Otherwise, if you are not making them uncomfortable, they'll not even notice that you exist. And that's why Eleanor Roosevelt, the wife to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, one of the most consequential US statesmen, who died serving his 4th term, the only president who served for 4 terms, he died during his 4th term. The Depression tallest man. He was wheelchair bound. He had polio, but he had an elephantine brain. Said this, the wife: great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss people. This is a cliche. We all have come across it. So, Pepita, your political choices are none of my business, really. Who you support, whether you've got a voter card, whether you support William Ruto or Raila Odinga, that's none of my business. I want to engage you as a fellow compatriot. Can I listen to you? Can you listen to me? So these people who come here are preoccupied with my political choices. I think they're small. They're diminished by the smallness of their politics. They're like these small animals that I usually watch on National Geographic. They will starve to death if they don't hunt as a pack. I don't suffer from that. I will take you head on because I'm like a lion, like a leopard, like a jaguar. You have to come up as a group. We don't like his English. We don't like what it means. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to listen to what I'm talking about. Finish and go. You're boring us. Just insult this president. That's what we want to hear. Insult him. We want you to do that. Pipita, I won't do that. I can tell you for free. I will not do that. And that's why I mentioned Anthony, because I'm not lying. I mentioned, I'm glad he came here. I did take him head on. He remembers on those spaces that Gloria has mentioned. I took him head on. And I had to repeat it here. Pipita, I remember when I started making my submissions, I talked about class politics. If you recall, class politics. People just pick tribal politics. In my submission, I spoke about Ethiopia's Grand Renaissance Dam and why such a mammoth project will happen in Ethiopia and not in Kenya. Nobody mentioned that. But it's about primordial politics. Why? Pipita, you know why? Psychologists have a name for it. It's called projection. It's like all of a sudden if somebody tells you, no, Pipita, somebody's going to steal your thing. When something had never crossed your mind that somebody will steal your thing, you know what it means? This is the person who is planning to steal that thing. That's what it means. So if you find people who are obsessed with calling people tribalists and whatever, those are tribalists. Psychologists call it projection. That you know you are the one they're referring to. So what do? You flip it on its hand and accuse the one who is calling you out of the very, very things you stand indicted for. Pipita, that's what it is. Otherwise, they would want me not to call them out. Not to call them out. I'd be scared that if I call them out, they'll call me tribal. Pipita, there is no taboo word in Kenya, Kikuyu. It's not a taboo word. Griama is not a taboo word. Luo is not a taboo word. Luo is not a taboo word. It's not. It's only in the context in which you mention these words. It's not merely mentioning them. So these people who are scared of mentioning these words, Pipita, can tell you for free. Their politics is bigoted. That's why they're scared of mentioning these words. For us, we'll mention them because we don't have any malice against anybody. I don't have any malice against anybody. But they will insult me on this space. They will insult me on Twitter. They will insult me. But they're like vultures. They scavenge. Hyenas, they scavenge. With me, I go for big game. Big game. I don't have to do it as a pack. I can do it single-handedly. The agility, the power, the resoluteness. I have it, Pipita. I yield.
All right. Thank you, Western Shilao, for that submission. I want to go to Anthony. Unajuanga saa zingine unakuanga umekaa mahali unapigiwa simu unaambiwa ingia WhatsApp na ulikuwa umepatia rafiki yako gari aende nayo kwa shamba. Unajua zile dhara amenunua zimerarua kiti. So hivyo ndo imefanyikia Anthony.
Ladies and gentlemen, join Home Run with PP every weekday from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Only on X Spaces. Home Run with PP, the home of your most valuable social conversation.
101 manze. Home Run with PP is supported by you, the listener. Ladies and gentlemen, go into that tip jar line and support us. Tuwekeni basi hata extra time fund jamani. Tulisema tukienda extra time utachanga hata kama tutakuwa tumeenda 0-0 kwa tip. So leo tumeenda 0-0 kwa tip. So go into that extra time fund, mweke kitu tuendelee extra time. Unaona you have a lot of things to say. Buda Ngori ako kwa line, but wacha tusikie Anthony. Anthony, are you tribal? Are you tribal?
Thank you, PP. I'll start by, and everyone on the space, thank you for being on the space for this long. I was almost getting into bed because tomorrow I have a long day. Then I saw your message, PP. But let me go to the point. I am not tribal. And one of the reasons I've not been on spaces of late is because, as you are all aware, Sabasaba on the 25th, over 1,000 young people in this country got arrested. Close to 500 of them have terrorism charges that they're facing in court. And tomorrow they will be in court. Kahawa, then we have Nanyuki, and so on and so forth. That is where you find I've been engrossed in those places. It's called the 50+ million campaign. But let me answer your question now. Is Anthony tribal? What I simply gave Gloria, and that time was when we were, yes, I remember I used to co-host with Tony Kashoka, was the voting pattern in Kenya. Okay? And the voting pattern in Kenya so far says that 37% of Kenya's vote comes from one region. And that region happens to be the region I also come from. That does not mean that in 2027, that pattern might change. For sure, young people in this country, Gen Zs and millennials, and a good number of the older generation that we have managed to convince might change the voting pattern in this country. That is something I strongly believe. But does that mean I ignore how Kenya has voted in the previous elections? No. Because as I prepare for 2027, I can only be guided by the past so that I prepare for what is coming. And that is what that space was about. That space was saying, and I remember Gashoka gave the percentages. I think he gave around 32, 37% of Kenyans' vote comes from that region. And that region, Mount Kenya, being the name, tends to vote unanimously in one. This Mount Kenya tends to kuvasuti a lot. Okay? Why? Because there are people who believe that Mount Kenya they vote to punish. So there are people who will say in the past, if Mount Kenya had an issue with Raila, any candidate was the opposite ballot of Raila, they would vote like that. And people have said it is also Mount Kenya that gave Kenya Ruto. Okay? Because we are the people who came up with the famous song, Towo Kiratene. Okay? So in 2027, this same region will play a very instrumental role in removing William Ruto. Okay? But, and I hope Gloria now, I don't know, I hope I've been able to show you why that conversation was curated that way. We are simply saying in the past, Mount Kenya has voted like this. Okay? And also, I don't know, someone's mic is on. I think it's Gloria's. In the past, anytime Mount Kenya is angry, they tend to increase their voting to hit close to 90%. Okay? So is change coming with the revolution that happened in June 2024? Most certainly, there is change. Gloria has also asked a question. What happened to how the young people were moving together? I'll tell you this, Gloria. We tend to move forward very quickly as young people. Today, as we talk, 1,500 young people are behind bars. Yesterday, I had a meeting the whole day with some of the victims. There's a lady who really caught my attention, and she has been on my mind since. She's Mama Sophia. 3 of her daughters walked out of the house on the 25th. 3 of them were arrested. 3 of them have children. We've managed to pay bail for 1 of them. 2 are still in, I think they're in Langata prisons. And she was pleading with us, please get the other 2 out because I don't have a job. My daughter does not have a job. And I have her grandchildren who are every day asking me, when is mommy coming home? Those are the things that I think as young people, we need to come back and say, the same way when you arrest a politician, they don't sleep until their fellow politician is out. Let me give you an example. Today, let me actually use a parallel. Gitonga Mokonji, the MP of Manyata, was arrested with terrorism charges. At the same time, 1,500 young people also arrested. When Getonga Mokonji was going to DCI, MPs were camping outside DCI. When Getonga Mokonji is going to Kahawa Low Court, MPs are accompanying him to Kahawa Low Courts. Tomorrow, when our young people will be appearing in Kahawa West, where will the young people be? After all, these young people paid the ultimate price. They are now behind bars as we speak. But do we show up? No, we've moved on. The political class does not leave any of them behind. I'll tell us today on this space. Let us also get into the habit of not leaving any of our own behind. So when people say I'm tribal, sometimes I get surprised, because when the people who were accused of torching the police station in Kisumu during Albert Ojwang's funeral, they were represented by Babu Owino and a lady called Wanjiru Wanjira, a lawyer. It's teamwork. So how is Anthony tribal when we are coordinating all these court cases? Today, one of the biggest challenges we had, and this came out in the meeting that we had, is that lawyers have said these cases will go on for 24 months. This is 2 years. We've been doing it pro bono. We need more people to come in pro bono, because every time we go to court, we have left active files that actually are giving us money. So now we have to raise money because we might need to start paying lawyers. There's a young man who was part of the people we met yesterday. These young people tell you, when we got out of prison after you paid our bail, we can't go back to work. Why? Because people are saying, staki kisirania, maandamano. After all, now you can't even get a good conduct certificate. Why? You are facing terrorism charges. So Gloria, and everyone else in this panel, we are tribeless? Yes. We want a new Kenya? Yes. Let us not leave each other behind, because the people we leave behind will form the fabric of the Kenya we want to shape. Let us not make the mistake that was made by our founding fathers, that when freedom came, we forgot the Mau Maus who were in the forest, and the establishment went and formed government. I'm not here to bash anyone, but I'm here to say this. When Anthony talks about the numbers, come and crucify me and tell me, Anthony, your numbers are not realistic, because we can't also be ignorant. There's a youth in the urban areas, which is Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, and there's a majority number of young people, youth, who are in the rural areas, who think different, who resonate different. How do we bring this big conversation together? Is by showing that we, the people who are saying we want a new Kenya, are so distinctly different that we will stand for each other, we will be there for each other, and we will move forward together as Kenyans, irregardless of where we come from or the regions we were born in. When our team goes to court, we don't go to court because we feel this is a Murima case. After all, let me bring it to your attention. 112 of the people of the court cases coming up are in one place. They're in Kirinyaga. Why didn't we start with Kirinyaga? We started with areas like Kisumu. We started with areas like Mombasa. Yet, when you look at the numbers, just the court cases, Nanyuki alone has, I think, over 60. Kirinyaga has 112. Now we come now to Nairobi, which is the next area with the biggest number. As I yield, I'll say this. Our unity as the new generation, as the people who want to see the transformed Kenya, must not be in terms of, what do I call it, fireworks moments. It must be consistent. And we must show up for each one of us who has been arrested. We must, if for those who can show up tomorrow at Kahawa Law Courts, show up so that those people behind bars can see that we were not forgotten. The young people who we went out with, and we were unfortunately arrested, and they were not arrested. They still remember us. That moral support is very important. I could go on and tell you that some of these young people have been sodomized. Things you might never know. I could go on and tell you that right now we are trying to come up with how do these young people who have come out of these cells, how do they go under psychosocial, that psychological, trauma that they are facing. How are they, guided out of it? Some of them, bang a metal door. Someone enters under their bed. They go under their beds. That is what we are dealing with. So let's not forget those people. When I talk about numbers, Gloria, I'm simply saying in the past, this is how Kenyans have voted. And let me just say, as Weston says, you can never go into the future by ignoring the past. History is a big determinant of how we reshape tomorrow, because nothing happens and you say, oh, this is the first time this is happening. No. Everything has happened in the past. We only need to know what mistakes did people in the past do so that we correct them going forward. And if I, as Anthony, have sounded in any way out of form, then I don't know. I will not call it as, it's just, I don't ignore numbers. It's just a weakness I have. I look at data, and data is guided by numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Bwana Anthony, for coming and clearing the air. So I think Gloria has her hand up, so I'm going to bring in Gloria in a few. But Budangori, why is your hand up? How are you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Talk to me.
Okay, nafurahi sana kusikia mjadala hapa, na pia nimesikia ni kama ulihisi ni kama kuna mtu amekuguza, lakini kwanza naweza kusema kwamba both wewe na huyo jamaa alijaribu kukuguza. Huyo jamaa ana mata kwa maoni yake, iwe nimeagree nayo ama sijagree nayo, but pia wewe una mata kwa sababu if you don't matter then singelikuwa hapa kuanzisha hii mjadala na heshima yenye umeweka kwa kila mtu kwa kupatiana maoni yake ni kitu ina maana kwamba, na hiyo inaweza onekana kulingana na zile namba za watu wanakuja hapa. Inaweza kuwa pengine you are not a good host, but si kila mtu hujua kila kitu, na pia with the time unaweza kuwa even better than today. Na kama nahisi pengine kuna mahali hauko sawa, tunaweza kujadiliana kando, nikwambie pengine ungeliuliza maswali kama hayo, pengine ungelifanya hivi, kwa sababu kwa hii maisha tunasoma kila siku, masomo haina mwisho. Kando na hayo, sasa nikikuja kwa ile kitu ningelipenda kusema ni hivi. Nafikiria shida tulio nayo katika nchi yetu ni kwamba tuko na mambo mengi sana yanatukumba. Kuna mambo mengi sana ambayo tunataka kuongea juu yake, lakini kitu inanishangaza ni kwamba ni kama hatupigi hatua. Tuko tu pale kwa malalamiko hii na hii na hii, lakini hatuwezi kusema kwamba tunapiga hatua katika hii mjadala ile tunaweza sema yes tumeamua hivi. Ukiona kama wakati hizi space zilianza wakati wa finance bill, kulikuwa na hatua ambao watu walikuwa nasema hii ndio lengo na hii ndio tunaenda kutatua. Na saa hii tumebaki tu ni kama watu wanaongea kwa sababu ya kuongea, ama kuna ile competition ya mtu ako na point mzuri kuliko mwingine, ama kujaribu kuonyesha pengine mimi ninaweza kuwa na kitu muhimu kuliko mwingine. Lakini cha muhimu kwamba ni tuweke Kenya kwanza, tuseme hii ni Kenya, na tujiulize shida iko wapi. Hapa ndio mahali tunafaa kuwa, kwa sababu ukirudi ukijiuliza kabisa hii swali utapata kwamba hata Ruto si shida. Kwa nini nasema hivyo? Na najua kuna mtu atakuja na rungu kunipiga, but nitasema hivi, kwa nini nahisi kwamba Ruto si shida? Ukiona leo hii kunao wenye walikuwa katika mrengo wa upinzani wakisema Ruto ni mwizi, na wakatuambia mwizi ni mwizi, na wakatuelezea haya na haya yameibiwa. Lakini Wenye walikuwa na Ruto wakatuambia hapana, hao ni watu wa kelele, hawapendi maendeleo, nini, kila kitu wanapinga. Sasa wenye walikuwa nasema Ruto ni mwizi, leo hii hawaoni hiyo wizi. Wenye walikuwa wanatetea Ruto wakisema hakuna wizi, leo hii ndio wanaona wizi mpaka na zile zilizokuwa zikinafanyika wakiwa na Ruto. Kumaanisha wanatuambia even wakati walikuwa na kana ya kwamba hakuna ufisadi kwa serikali ya Ruto wakiwa ndani, walikuwa najua ufisadi ilikuwa, lakini juu walikuwa pale kwa meza ya mlo, ilikuwa sawa, haikukuwa. Sasa Ruto ni kama coin, unaweza decide kuona simba ama kichwa, lakini bado ni ile coin moja tu. Okay, hapa pia ukiangalia kwa makini, ni nini najaribu kusema? Kama ni mtu mmoja ni muizi na si muizi, na inalingana na wewe kumuona kulingana na mahali umesimama, basi hata awe muizi ama asiwe muizi, kuna shida katika macho ya wale ama wanaomwangalia ama wanaomsikiza, kwa sababu huenda ikawa ile wanaona ni illusion, ni kitu haiko, lakini wanaona kama iko, ama kuna kitu iko lakini hawataki kuona. Sasa inamaanisha hata tukimanage kubadilisha Ruto, hii shida iko kwa Wakenya wenyewe. Tunaanza kuitatua namna gani? Tunaanza kuitatua kujiangalia sisi wenyewe na kujiuliza shida iko wapi. Wacha nikuambie Pipita jambo lingine la mwisho, na nilikuwa katika mjadala ingine nikasema hii mambo. Shida kubwa Kenya ni kwamba tunapigania uongozi, urais. Na hapo kwa urais tunaipigania kiasi kwamba hata tuangalie ni nini tunaweka hapo, bora mtu mwenye tunataka aingie kwa urais. Hatupigi hata msasa huyo mtu, no, mtu tunataka. Kwa saa hii tunataka Raila. Raila ni bora aingie, haijalishi ni mzuri ni mbaya, hakuna shida. Ruto ni lazima aingie, ni mzuri ni mbaya, hakuna shida. Nani ni Pipita, kama Pipita anaweza ingia juu ndio tunataka hivyo. Lakini cha muhimu ambayo Kenya wanastahili kupigania na itatatua shida zetu zote ni power. Now, power in my opinion inafaa kurest between the office of the presidency and the people. And that is where we need to balance the power, to make sure that the people have the power they need to control the executive, and the president has the power he needs to execute his mandate. But for this to happen, you need to have a working judiciary and a working assembly, National Assembly. These two things, because National Assembly has to make sure that the right laws are in place, and the judiciary has to make sure that these laws are followed. Now, the problem ilitokea akati tulilose power yetu juu ya National Assembly. Kwa nini nasema hivyo? Kwa sababu kulikuwa na ile I think ni mswada ambayo ilikuwa inanuia kutupatia uwezo wa kurecall wale ma MPs iwapo tunahisi ya kwamba hawatuhudumii. Kumbuka kwamba members of parliament ndio wana uwezo wa kuimpeach the president. So that means tukiwa na uwezo juu ya member of parliament ya kwamba wanaweza fanya yale tunataka, then wakiwa na ile uoga ya kwamba wasipotimiza matakwa yetu tutawanyang'anya kazi, basi nao watalazimika kufanya yale wananchi wanataka. Na hiyo inamaanisha nao ile pressure tunaweka kwao, nao wataiweka juu ya presidency, na presidency italazimika nao kufuata kile kitu wananchi wanataka. Lakini hii mswada ilipelekwa, kuna watu walioenda kotini na ikasemekana kuna parts za hiyo sheria ambayo haziko sawa, wakaisimamisha. Sasa hapa wakatufunga mkono, hatuna uwezo wa kurecall wale wajumbe iwapo tunahisi hawafanyi kazi. Sasa hapa ndio shida kubwa inatokea, kwa sababu tajiri wa bunge amepoteza mamlaka yake. Sasa mbunge ako pale bungeni akijua hakuna kitu anaweza fanywa. Kwa hivyo hata akidecide kuchukua pesa kwa mtu yeyote apitishe msaada wowote, hana shida, kwa sababu hakuna anayeweza kumtisha ni ule mwananchi mwenye alimpigia kura, na ule alishanyang'anywa power na koti. Until koti iweze kuturudishia ile, ama hii mswada irudishwe kwa bunge tupewe ile uongozi, hata tukichukua huyo wa Mnyoro tuweke hapo na tukose kuwa na hiyo uwezo wa kucontrol parliament, hata mkinichukua mimi bado nitawanyorosha. Cha mwisho katika hii dakika yenye tunasema umenipatia moja, tunaishi katika nchi ambayo hatutaki kujua ukweli. Kitu ikifanyika tunaamua ni pipita. Saa hii unaweza ninyang'anya nafasi hapa ya kuongea, nikasirike na wewe na nitakuua tu. Kwa sababu gani? Juu najua kesho watasema ni Ruto amekuua juu unafanyaga space, watu wanaongea vibaya juu ya space. Ndugu yangu akisumbuana na mimi kwa shamba leo na ninajua yeye upost vitu mbaya kwa space, naweza muua tu kwa sababu najua Ruto atablemiwa. That is a very dangerous route we are taking. I'm not saying si serikali inaua. What I'm saying, we need to use common sense so that everything is based on evidence. Crime ikifanyika tutake kujua. Yes, I can suspect ni Pipita, but at least because hata ule mjumbe ambaye alilaumiwa kwa kujiteka, iwapo angelipatikana amekufa, nani angelikubali ni Ruto amemuua? Kwa hivyo sijui, lakini tufikirie kwa makini, hii nchi tunataka kuipeleka wapi? Kingine ni kwamba tumefika mahali kila kitu tunasema tunataka hii, tukipewa hiyo tunapinga. Tukiwekewa system ya procurement kuhakikisha kila mtu ambaye hata anaiba anapatia bibi yake contract, tunajua amepatia bibi yake, kesho tunaruka tutaki. Tunasema tunataka tulipwe, tukisema tulipwe, kesho hatutaki. Why? Because they fear wakikubali hizi vitu zifanyike, huenda ikawa itapatia Ruto platform ya kushinda uongozi, na hiyo pia ni shida. So tunataka kupinga everything, tunataka kusafa mpaka dakika mwisho, bora tu Ruto aende. I think that is stupid. We need a better strategy. Thank you.
Japonji.
Hey, Pipi, leo umeweka fire kwa space, Pipi, I hope everyone is good. Dr. Mofo, Anthony, Western, Gloria, and Red Hand. Pipi, I've been listening, and sometimes I wish I would come to the mic, but my job does not allow. So I have to listen more, and I have learned the painful act of tolerance and listening. First of all, Pipi, I agree with Gloria 100%. Pipi, there are sometimes watu wanasemanga vitu hapa that don't add up, and like you can say something, Pipi, and then after 2 minutes, mtu anasema the complete opposite of what you said, and they go along with it, I mean, like, come on, Pipi, I mean, we can do better. I'm not blaming you kufundishi kazi, but it is what it is, and also it brings a lot of of animosity kwa hizi spaces. Anyway, moving forward, Pipi, one of the reasons why I've been sometimes coming back to these spaces is because of people like Western, Dr. Mofo hapa, Anthony, and kina Red Hand, Amalia pia wako pale, I can name a lot, Diamond and Kira, because there is objectivity in the discussion, Pipi, and there is something called data-based. There are some stats, there is fact-checking. You cannot just come to this space and just talk out of, of Jabba. And I respect that, And having said that, Pipi, whenever I'm in these spaces, I always choose to follow the data and the stats. The message that someone says, I never bother much about the messenger. That's why sometimes whenever my account is suspended or anything, I find it difficult even finding the people who speak, who have very good, logical conclusions to events. because I don't want even to, I don't even remember the name well, or I don't want to remember, but the message sticks, you know. So I am able to separate the messenger from the message. And that's exactly, I think, what we should be doing here. And by the way, Anthony, thanks for what you are doing. And, you know, Anthony, I said this exactly 1 month ago in one space, and I asked those people who are in jail, who went to the streets with us, but they were jailed and counter accusations. Do you think, Anthony, these people, when they come out, they will ever go back to do the same thing? You know, as you're saying, they cannot be employed and all that, you know. So are we in one way or another, you know, letting them down? Because that is exactly what is happening, you know. Because when they're inside there, unasema, some of them, we know what happens in those police cells and jails, you know, and some of them are not even 18. Because when I listen to Redemptor speaking about their conditions, it's very sad, you know. And a normal human being, kama si ndio tuko fatigued hapa kwa space, most of us, what about that person mwenye amekuwa kwa jela all that time, kwa vitu zenye hakufanya, wengine wako underage, for thinking that they're fighting for us, for the right thing. And whenever they have a chance, or someone visits them and they ask, how the Gen Z doing? And do they even talk about us? Do they even care about us? That one hurts, you know. And in a revolution, these are things that will break it down, because that person, when they come out, they will have two types of anger to Ruto and anger to us Gen Z, because we didn't do whatever it takes. They are going for courts tomorrow, like Anthony said. Many people will even, I mean, honestly, let's be honest. So it's almost like a lost cause, you know. And I'm very proud of you, Anthony. Keep doing what you're doing, whatever you can, and let them know that at least there are people who still care about them. And yeah, because it can happen to everyone. We know that, and we are not running away from that. Secondly, I always say this: you cannot accuse the pastor for you not believing in the church. Separate the pastor from the religion. Those are two different things. I saw pastors akikatia mtu, so I cannot go to church. I don't even believe in God. No, that is a weakness that you are projecting to others. Separate the pastor, the message, what the pastor says and what the pastor does. I think then we will have, because if you want to follow, like for example, Jesus, I'm not religious, but if you are going to follow Jesus and Malia is here, you can prove me wrong. You cannot follow what Jesus was doing mostly. You follow what he said you should do. I think those are two different things. And that's why sometimes I love these spaces, especially when we encounter into logical, you know, discussions. It's the same as politics. When someone switches sides, let's stop some unnecessary selective justification of past offense. You know, I see people here justifying nonsense that when I was on the other side, you didn't do ABC. So you can only, how can you prove to me that your mind can only be negative? You can only selectively go for nonsense or things and justify that. How can you justify that based on the past, that, oh, when I was on the other side, this happened? No, we have to be very consistent, you know. So as I wind, you know, I wanted to say that Kenya is being run on Fuliza or top-up, and I commented when the space started PP, the borrowing that is happening now, and Reda uliweka vizuri sana, the borrowing that is happening now, ni kama mtu, you are going to wed, people you are going to marry, you are working in a bank, you take a loan of 10 million, you are going to pay this in 30 years, and then for wedding, you go and marry, have a fly issue, like what is happening now in Kenya. You go and marry and all that, pay all those MC and all that, you know, and then this wedding does not even last, is the 5 years, actually assuming the marriage certificate is just for 5 years, but you have borrowed and you're supposed to pay the bank for 30 years. So you don't even care what happens next. You know, you are borrowed, you want to live your time and you want to use that loan to keep extending. So whoever goes to borrow from next year, it's not it's an extension of the loans we have. So they are just extending for those who will be born later, so they can also owe the country. That is what I'm saying here. We are running on Fuliza. And for that reason, I've been working, I've been thinking, and after a lot of deliberations, I personally decided I want to affiliate myself with anyone who is advocating for recovery and jailing of the past corrupt politicians, and use that those recovered, assets and all those proceeds of corruption as a basis for tax adjustment, so we can balance the deficit, And as Red said, Ruto had the golden chance, when they came and said there were empty coffers, and you said very well that you are very happy. I was also happy because they could have used that as a stepping stone to pause things, and do complete thorough audit and go after Uhuru, go after all that. How much money could they have recovered? If Obado only, they recovered how much? Almost 300 million, one person. And this just current. What about Anglo-Leasing? What about $750 million that Ruto takes 3 months before Atolewe? Where is it? It's not even factored anywhere. It's not even in the... You see, these are the things we're talking about. So the lesson there is also that Ruto cannot go after Uhuru 100%. We know that now. It took us a lot of time, but we know that. And the hypothesis is also correct that if Matiang'i was to come in, is a projection of Uhuru, because actually Jubilee is getting back to him. So he cannot go after Uhuru, okay? And also, it's very hard for him to go after Ruto, because Ruto cannot go after... You see, you join the dots, So what I'm trying to say here is, if we have to change these things through the ballot, then we have to drain the swamp. We have to go for anyone who has never served there before, which means they will not be compromised, or they cannot be blackmailed. Because even if you look at someone like Rigathi at some point served with Uhuru. At some point he served with Ruto. There is some softness in them, personal softness to Uhuru, towards Uhuru. We know that, So that's why when I come to these spaces and I hear people projecting on a lot of, tribal and all that, I've been to these spaces, Kikuyu spaces, I go there, Anthony, I've listened to... I don't care about that. I just want someone who can come here and tell us, look. And that's why I'm starting to go towards the Safina party, because I've been listening to them, I've been listening, whatever, because one of their mandate is that they will use those proceeds, to help run this country, because it's a lot. They have even put the number, and they have the facts from the government on it. And I keep saying this until that day. But if you want to go for Ruto, yes, you will be running the country on Fuliza, no problem with top up, and we'll still be here. Which development will be done? And as I yield in a minute, if I'm working, I'm employed, and I have to take loan to feed myself, because the salary is not enough, then I have no business being in the city or working, because my salary should be enough for consumption. But if I have to borrow to buy food, I can borrow only to invest, to buy shares, to buy, to invest. But if Kenya now is borrowing for that, then I don't think we'll have a country going forward. And I think Flavia is not there. She spoke so well about Ghana, how Ghana is now funding. Ghana was going down into dams, but look at the turnover, how they're able to turn around the economy using the proceeds of corruption recovered from the previous corrupt people. And they're now they're balancing, so they're doing so well. Anyway, that's all for me today, PP, and thanks for the mic.
Gloria, leo sitaki kufika saa sita. Niliwaambia if I get to the next day, we are not having a show tomorrow. So we have to finish the show before midnight. So before 11 p.m. Gloria.
Okay, let me try saying this very quickly. Anthony, I hear you, and I'm glad, and everybody has confirmed that equals story Ajaba. This is something that really happened. And I'll tell you why numbers is an issue. It's an issue because there's something in communication, we talk about context of communication. When, for instance, that happened, this was in October, just 3 months, because it was early October, 3 months after June 25th. So there was still that fire, there was still that hope that we thought we can still remove Ruto through a revolution, that we don't have to go through elections. Remember, that was the time we didn't want to hear parties, we didn't want to hear anything. So there was still fires in our belly. There was still hope. Despite what we could tweet, oh, State House is no go zone, there was still hope that this thing could still happen. Then we start calculating numbers for elections. Again, we talk numbers in a country like Kenya, and we know what numbers connote. That watu wenye wako kabila, sasa nitumie example ya Pipita, Wakuria, that you can never have a president because you don't have numbers. When you send such kind of communication, how do you expect people wenye hawana number wafeel? And when you are talking numbers, at a time when people are going to the street, our same yati, oh, Kikuyus, you are the largest tribe, give us this proportion of people to go to the street. Luos, you are this tribe, give us this proportion. Kalenjin, you are the second, give us this. People, mulikuwa mnaenda mnakutana kwa street, hata mjuani ni kina nani. And the lost comrades, the names, if we are to look at the comrades that we have lost, attest to that. It cut across. Unaona, imeshika karibu kila kabila imeshika. So when you are telling us about numbers, and watu wanaenda kwa street sacrificing their lives, not looking at wale wako ngapi, wale wako ngapi. When you tell me how that does not hurt, tell me how that does not disillusion people for movement. And if you can go back, because like we keep saying, spaces are recorded. If you can go back to comments at that time, and even people who were responding at that time, what were they saying? Were people happy with this numbers thing? So it's fine if you insist on the numbers, but I'm simply telling you, given a history of Kenya, where tribal lords have used numbers to negotiate this shareholding language, imetoka wapi? Because people feel we have the numbers. We are the one who made this presidency. And therefore, we deserve this number of ministerial positions. We deserve this number of PS positions. We deserve this, that, and that, and that. Now, wengine je? So how can we that want change also now speak the same language of numbers? Because iyo numbers inasaidia nini? If 50 people in Lowland remove Ruto, if 20 people in Coast vote to remove Ruto ama wameenda kwa street, why should numbers matter? Why should numbers matter? Why should numbers matter? So it's good you've confirmed. And I'm saying that is, for me, and for many other people who cannot come here and speak because either they're not here ama waliogopa kusema, that really put a puncture on this thing. You should know your history. Ukiongea other places, maybe it's another country, numbers, fine. But here where numbers are used to negotiate, and so mimi najiuliza, okay, at the end of the day tutakuwa pamoja, alafu tukishashinda utaanza kuniambia numbers. Utaanza kucalculate shareholding according to numbers. No. For me, I still insist, these issues of numbers, oh, we are many. Okay, fine. So if it's about numbers, then kila tribe basi iende kwa kokuni yake, ihesabu numbers zake, negotiate according to numbers, and the status quo remains. No matter if you look at how these presidents throughout history have picked ministers and so on, utaona, you can clearly see the pattern. That this tribe is always ni mingi, ni mingi, because because to them it's about numbers. Wanaulizana after elections, nyinyi hata amukupiga kura, in fact deserve anything. In fact mko na bahati sana. Is that the kind of country we want? So how does numbers help us in this revolution, in the issue of good governance? How do numbers, does it matter what are watu wako wangapi? Does it, if we all agree whether watu wako wawili, wale wako 10, these other ones are 1,000, if we all have one goal and we all agree that this country is not going in the right direction. Let us put our heads together. Let us change. Let us get change. If we all agree, why should our numbers matter? Why should our numbers matter? So October, barely 3 months, people still are looking for a way of removing this person. Then you're telling us numbers, oh, elections, this group, without this group, we can, So for you, it might not matter. But for the rest of us who have seen what numbers have done, the rest of us who have seen what Tarakaniti numbers did, and post the 2007, 2008 post-election violence, deaths, name it. For those of us who keep seeing what numbers mean, then a talk of numbers really puts us off. It really puts fear in our belly. It really makes us question whether we are in the right spaces, whether the people that we are purporting to work together with, whether they really have the interest of everyone at heart, or they have their own interests at heart. A country that has used numbers politically, census itself is political. Even these numbers that we're talking about, they are disputed, they are contested. We know how numbers have been exaggerated for the political elite to achieve whatever it is that then we say speaking about numbers is fine. Okay, it might be fine to you, but I can assure you that's where you lose many of us. I'm sure I'm not alone, and I've said you can go back to that recorded space and see and listen to it and listen to how people were pushing back. The people, what were they saying? Look at the comments. But if you're still convinced, then it's fine.
Thank you for that. I see Dr. Mofo's hand in the air, so I'm going to give Dr. Mofo a chance. The space ends at 11. We'll see each other tomorrow again for another home run.
Thank you, Repeater. I think the bottom line of this discussion was to look at the performance of Mr. William Ruto and see whether he has performed according to the expectations of the Kenyans and what he had committed to. And from my side, I said, my score is 0. Any person who did not give Mr. William Ruto a score and was in the game or was in the discussion withheld the chance to score again to score 4 against Mr. William Ruto, his score is as good as 0 because unless he submits his score. Peter, I want to be brief and say, Mr. William Ruto, when he took to power, there are 2 things I want to put him verbatim. Number 1, he said that the reason he opted to fight to the last minute and remain in the government of Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, it is because if anything goes wrong with this government, I'll equally be accountable because I am part of the government. So, Mr. William Ruto himself claims that he is equally responsible and not morally, but legally for anything that went right or wrong as far as the regime of performance of Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta is concerned. The other thing I want to say is that when he campaigned against the backdrop of the success that Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta had got. He said, me and Uhuru Kenyatta, we work together. We have delivered all this. I will work and I will improve even more. The other thing I want to say is when I take my comparison with him, it's about so many issues. I'll give one example. Mr. William Ruto last week, or this week, chartered a plane for close to 20 million to go to Addis Ababa. I want you to Google the flight price of return tickets, Nairobi to Addis Ababa, Bole International Airport. On the higher side, 40,000 Kenya shillings. Return ticket that is on economy. If he wants to do first class, well, maybe 100,000. The number of delegates, Why do we spend our money? What on wastage of money? 20 million charter plane. What for? What benefit does it bring to our economy? That's a fundamental question. The other thing, we are talking about flights, Peter. Uhuru Kenyatta took a flight to Washington, D.C. on a government mission, right? What happened? Mid-air, he was flying the Kenyan presidential jet to Dubai, where he would take a flight from Doha International Airport, from Dubai and proceed. And that was actually, it was a commercial plane, right? Not a commercial plane. It was not chartering a plane. And this was the second time that Mr. William Ruto is chartering a plane. Remember, he chartered a plane sometimes back to Washington, D.C. The figures, you know. All these are things and these are the bases we are using to score against him or for him. What happened when I just want to finish my statement and say Mr. William Ruto himself conspired, I will say it authoritatively here, conspired to bring down the plane. And that's why the flight was aborted midway. No one talks about it. That is Mr. William Ruto against his boss. A lot of things have been spoken about numbers. And I will talk about an issue I saw, an exchange between, I think, Member of Parliament Kaluma from one of the constituencies in Homa Bay. And this is what he said. He said it has been proven that the birth rates in our regions, including Homa Bay, are higher than any other places. And that was in response to, I think, a tweet that had been made by one of, is it Moses Kuria, about people need to review the statements that they insisted that they are high in numbers. And my response was this: look here, Peter. I want to take Muranga and I want to compare it with Homa Bay. And I'll be objective and I'll talk about the I'll talk about the development. You saw what happened during the development, during the revolution, when the governor for Muranga took to stage, he showed all the development of the projects they are running. All right, what happened with the governor for Homa Bay? The lady, she showcased the palatial office, governor's office, and some construction of a public arena by the beach. These things are not right. These things are not wrong. It depends on how you look at them, right? And what value it brings to each people. But today, as we speak about the child mortality rate, whose development is defending the birth rates and the survival rates of the children, is it when Mr. William Ruto kills the Linda Mama project by the former First Lady? And what has he brought? What has he brought? What has he brought instead or in replacement for Linda Mama? Therefore, some of these mismanagement and policies they have implemented, they are far-reaching. They are making all of us suffer. And the other thing is talking about the mortality. You look at what Uhuru Kenyatta is doing, you look at what Gladys Wanga is doing, which one reduces the mortality rate? Taking drugs to the hospital or taking money to build some public arena or palatial governor's offices? These are fundamental questions we must talk about as we analyze the performance of the government of the day. And talking about Mr. William Ruto doesn't walk around with his wife. Have they divorced? Where are the family values? And ultimately, some people have spoken about some things that they have asked. Hey, you say like this because you hate William Ruto. I put it to you right now that for me, servant leadership is not about love affair. I'm not in love with Mr. William Ruto. There are people I've got to praise. They've got to show me why I praise them. I've got so many people who I love and I've got to express love to, and I can praise them and defend them. But more importantly, for me, Leadership is about standing for the principles and not emotions, and most fundamentally, defending the Constitution. Remember, by the end of the day, the terms of references between us and Mr. William Ruto is not what he says, but what the Constitution what the Constitution says. If he does anything against the Constitution, we've got to seek judicial review. Judicial review. If he thinks
Well,
it's legally right,
you gotta land.
he's gonna prevail. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. I'm sorry.
Nitaanza kuwa treat kama vile watu wa parliament wanafanya. You know, in parliament, if you finish your 2 minutes are done, unajipata tu umetolewa mic. Utaendelea kuongea huko. So if you cannot hear my call for 1 minute, 2 minutes, nitaanza tu na remove from mic. Shoo. So yes, I said I want to end the space at 11, guys. I don't want to get to midnight. If I connect days, I go every weekday, I go every day. So 56 comments. I can't read all those comments. I see Weston's hands in the air. Weston, I'm gonna give you 5 minutes again to end this space. I don't.